All right. What my presentation this evening is just an overview of what we've been doing at our school. I teach 5th grade, and I have 2 classes. We team teach, and I have a morning class of 25 students and an afternoon class of 24 students. And they are really excited about being part of the GLOBE program, as my students have been for the last 6 years. But they're always really excited, and I think the one thing they're really excited about is being a part of something bigger and sharing data and communicating with other schools. So far we have engaged in activities to understand the difference between weather and climate, and also we took time to define the climate of our location, and they're really excited all the time to tell people they live in a continental climate. And the students have started keeping a scientific journal of our GLOBE project activities. Instead of individual journals, we're keeping class journals. So I have a morning class and an afternoon class journal. And the students take turns doing sketches and logging what we have done, and also putting photographs in the journal. We've been working on the GLOBE protocols. The first one we did at the beginning of the year was GPS, and the students learned about satellites and how to use the GPS and how they work. And then we even did a little geocaching around the community. The students then used the GPS to help identify a study site where we're going to do our creek study, and that's about a 1/4 mile from our school. When we started learning about clouds, and the cloud protocols for GLOBE, the students made cloud cover models, and the white paper was headlines for 10 spaces on the paper for 10% for each space. And so then they practiced making models with different percentages so that they could practice identifying cloud cover. And then, of course, they learned how to identify the clouds. They work in group of 4. That's the familiar divide the sky up position. And today they were really excited because we had a fire drill and there were probably hundreds of contrails. We live close enough to Cleveland, their airport, that we get a lot of contrails, especially when it's cooler. And the students also learned to use the rule of thumb to identify how high cumulus clouds are. One of the things that I've participated with my students in for several years is the December surface temperature field campaign. And so the students are also learning the protocols for that and using an IRT. And the students, when I was taking their pictures, they said, please let people know that it was Halloween dress-up day that day. So they don't usually dress that way. We did visit the Nora Creek site, and the students wrote a really nice description of the land cover and took photographs and took water temperature and measured the flow of the stream using green tomatoes that weighed about the same. And the problem we're having in Norwalk is that we have had so much rain this year that the creek is almost at flood stage, and we can't do any further sample collecting until that water goes down a little bit for safety reasons. So hopefully we'll get in the creek before the snow flies. So the project direction currently is that students are going to utilize the data that our wastewater treatment plant collects. They do liquid precipitation and temperature data, and they've been doing it for many decades. And they send that data to the National Weather Service in Cleveland. And so we can get the summary graphs and charts with that data on. So the kids are kind of interested in knowing if the rainfall amounts that we get with each storm, and compare that to how often the creek floods, because it just seems like in the last several years, we've had these huge amounts of rain, short periods of time, and the creek has been flooding quite often. In fact, last spring we had a flood day instead of a snow day. And then another group of students would like to look at the water quality in the creek at different times of the year, looking at macroinvertebrates and also pH and the conductivity using those tools we got in the Globe Kit. And our creek is interesting because it connects our city reservoirs with the Huron River that eventually flows into Lake Erie. But we've had some situations causing delays in our data and our work, and one is the rain, and the creek is just we're not able to get into the creek. Hopefully we will be able to do that next week. And our school is on Main Street in Norwalk, Ohio, and we find that everything is vandalized on our school grounds, and so I'm still looking for a good location to place the weather station house. Our principal thinks that maybe the roof would be good, but then we wouldn't get the soil temperature component, but that might be the safest place to put it. Okay, so that's kind of a summary of what we've been doing in Norwalk, and the kids are just really, really excited and happy to be a part of the Globe program.
Thank you, Marcy. That was really nice.